2024, and this is a public hearing with the Minister for Infrastructure, and it's part of our quarterly hearing cycle. I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to the following. This will be filmed and streamed live, and the recording and transcript will be published afterwards on the States Assembly website. Please ensure that electronic devices are switched to silent. That's a good example right there. I would ask those members of the public who have joined us, thank you for coming, if you please do not interfere with the proceedings, and as soon as the hearing is closed, please do leave quietly. And so to commence, I would like everybody to begin with the introductions, and please state your name as clearly as possible, and also come and use the microphones as clearly as possible as well. So I'd like to start. My name is Deputy Hilary Shern, and I'm the Chair of the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure.
Deputy Tom Collins, Vice Chair.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
David Johnson, Constable St Mary, panel member. David Wallace, and then yourself.
Andy Jale, Constable St John, Minister for Infrastructure.
Tim Daniels, Director of Property Holdings.
Simon Crowcroft, Constable of St Helier and Assistant Minister for Infrastructure.
Andy Scape, the Chief Officer for Infrastructure and Environment.
And Ellen Littlechild, the Group Director for Operations and Transport.
And Tristan Dodd, Associate Director for Transport, Highways and Infrastructure.
Thank you very much. We have a 2-hour meeting scheduled today, and I will try to keep to that schedule. We've got a lot of questions, and anything if we don't get through today, we'll follow up with to you later with a letter. And so,
sorry, just in advance, I need to leave at about 5 to 12, so I won't be here for the last half an hour.
Okay, thank you. So, Minister, first of all, I'd like to start with the budget that we are scrutinising at the moment, and thank you very much for your letter that outlined very clearly the different projects that you have put forward. And overall, there has been a cut in funding for the Estates Capital Programme between the 2024 government plan and this year's budget. In the 2024 plan, that proposed funding for 2025 was 48 million, and in the proposed budget now for the same year it is envisaged to spend 28 million. Do you believe that you have got sufficient funding to carry out all the priorities you have identified at the start of your term of office?
I think what we've got to do is be sensible about what we can deliver, and I think the previous government had started to do this actually in terms of being sensible in terms of what they could deliver. We've often seen government plans with £150 million worth of capital expenditure, and the reality is we're able to deliver around half of that, 75, 85 million pounds. So we've taken a hard look at what we can deliver in the time we've got, with the budget we've got. A number of the programmes won't be ready for us to commence during 2025. So it's pointless, in my opinion, to put down that we're going to start building something if we don't own the land, for example, or if we haven't got planning permission. That doesn't mean to say that we won't be doing feasibility studies on these areas. So a lot of work will continue in some of the priority projects, but we're not physically not able to start those. And I think later on we might talk about ICE, and that's helping us to shape our vision and what we can actually deliver.
Thank you. And the Common Strategic Policy approved in May states the government will deliver a plan to revitalise town, and this priority reference also references the improvements to the central market and the fish market. Please can you tell the panel what funding has been made available for this and where it can be found in the budget? For example, page 55 of the budget indicates that there's no capital project funding which should be been allocated over the period of the budget to the market's revitalisation projects.
Yeah, a lot of work has been done on a major overhaul, regeneration of the markets that's been done in association with economic development. And that there has been talked about a major scheme that could cost £11 million, for example, to completely improve the market. Since being given a responsibility for the central markets, I've been meeting with the market manager, with market tenants, and I'm very much of the view that we need to adopt an evolutionary approach to improving the market rather than the revolutionary one. I don't believe we need to spend millions of pounds to improve what is already regarded as the jewel in the crown of St Helier. And the kind of improvements we've been talking about will not require millions of pounds or even thousands of pounds to deliver. The market income that is raised from the rental paid by tenants is ring-fenced, and so it's an unusual, I think, in states financing. We know how much money is going to come in from the market tenants, and that enables the market manager and the team to budget for it. So I think there are going to be some significant but low-cost, practical improvements in how the market operates in the coming months.
Can I just jump in there? Can you give us some concrete examples, Constable? Oh, sorry, Assistant Minister.
Yes, I mean there are numerous ones. I'm not quite sure where to start. Some of the ideas that came out of the consultation were included things like opening the market on a Thursday afternoon. That's already happening. The market is now open 6 days a week. Evening openings for restaurants in the market. That's now happening on 2 days a week, Fridays and Saturdays, and as well as the two restaurants that started. We have other players who now want to open on a Friday or Saturday evening. We have been talking to economic development officers about artistics, having an artist in residence, for example, in the market, about having a regular music happening, all kinds of these improvements. More radically, we're looking to see whether we can bring back a post office presence in the market, which was always a very important part of going to the market. Anything which will drive footfall into the market and get it busier, I think, is something we're going to pursue.
So just to confirm, in the budget it says there is improvements to the central market and fish market, but there is no budget attached because those improvements don't include anything that is related to the physical structure of the market itself or changes.
Well, there is some work. I mean, you'll see at the moment there's a large scaffolding that's been erected around the market, and that is in order to create what's called a man-safe, should be called person-safe really, system which will allow people to get onto the roof safely and clean it. That's not been there before, and it's prevented important maintenance being done to the roof since Storm Kieran. So that's happening at the moment. That money is in the budget, and next year's budget will include finances to maintain the market and keep it looking its best.
Okay, and that was actually my next question. Was in the letter you had, the minister wrote to us. It did say market roof safety system and some development, and so there is funds then somewhere within the budget for 2025. That's not specifically under market revitalisation project that has for the roof safety. And what does some development mean? Is that related just to the roof then?
Yeah, I think we want to improve the lighting, which will show off the fantastic roof that's in the market. And there are a number of other things we're looking at doing to make, again, these are low cost things. That's why they don't appear in the budget.
And you said you were talking conversations with the tenants, and are they aware then that there is not going to be major changes to the market? And does that mean that they have more secure tenure with their marketplaces?
Well, we haven't yet agreed the new leases with the tenants. That's something which is on our agenda. In fact, I hope we'll be making a decision next week about it. The current one-year leases expire in December. They've been on one-year leases for several years. It's not satisfactory either for the government or for the tenants who are looking for security of tenure.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you very much, Constable. The panel would be interested in your view on how the halving of the public realm budget will impact on the revitalisation of town as a whole and supporting cycling and walking as a priority, which you have alluded to in the past other hearings that we've had.
Yeah, so I think we've had to make some tough decisions and some tough calls, but I do think there are some quick wins. In fact, only last week, the Constable of St Helier and I walked around St Helier along with officers of the department where we identified what we believe to be some quick wins, including additional blue badge parking, better cycle parking, motorcycle parking, We looked at junctions and crossings. And so we think that we can deliver some things more quickly. But we have to make decisions, unfortunately. I'm sure if I was given the choice of doing Lamont Street when Lamont Street was done, I would have said no, because we had our customer service department right there and we've impacted upon that. I would have waited until we opened our new customer service department, but what's done is done. We will be, I think it's worth remembering, we will be investing £89 million in 2025 in the island's infrastructure. So that is £7.5 million a month, or £1.7 million a week. So it's not insignificant, and that's actually a 10% increase on the net expenditure from 24 to 25. So in 24 we spent 57, and in 25 we're forecast to spend 62. So there's significant investment in infrastructure that goes on and that we don't see. We had people out until 2:30 on Sunday morning, whilst we were all tucked up in bed, making sure that homes were safe. Last Tuesday, I went to the abattoir to see the team there, and there's lots of things that we do. I know you've been to the cavern and you've been to the sewage treatment works, and we'd like to show you more of what we do as a department.
No, absolutely, I completely understand. I think for us, we're just trying to get into the relationship with the common strategic priorities that the government has set, and then the reality of this budget, which this specifically is an area that we're questioning because of the CSP that the.
Well, one of the key aims of the CSP is to limit the impact on the public of any price rises. Now, clearly that has impacts on what you can actually do. If you don't bring the money in, you can't spend it. And I think, having just been through the cost of living challenges, I think it's really important that we do limit our increase as much as possible whilst we try and recover from that period of time.
And in that regard, then, we see in the letter that you sent us a number of these public realms that cancelled, including the Collette Gardens regeneration. We're just wondering what work had already been done on that project, for example. How far had it got along before?
Well, I think
there
there will be some work carried out at the Collette Gardens. The plan was to spend millions of pounds up there. I do think we can do some work up there. And it's about what can we do. I think we can make some improvements just by maintaining things in a better way, which would come under business as usual rather than capital investment. The shoreline management plan is going to have over £70 million, between 70 and £100 million spent at Hovde Park. And the idea of that is to progress that around to the gardens and make a thoroughfare through. And it is about making choices. We want people to be able to enjoy that area and access that area.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick one on like Colette. I mean, is this an opportunity here to pass this over to the parishes in Helier? In other words, to take the pressure off the infrastructure budget and push it into, I don't know, if you had a conversation with the Constable about this?
Well, I think there are a number of areas around the island, not just the Collette Gardens, that could be transferred to parishes. And it's something that we need to do is to rationalise what does the government look after and what do parishes look after. And quite often in parishes, parishioners think that it's the parish that's not looking after something. So I think there's a number of areas, not just at the Collette Gardens, which is an example, and I do think the parish do some work for us there already, actually. But I do think there are a number of areas. Now, what we don't want to do is ad hoc, so we're trying to find a way of coming up with a strategy that says, our parish is interested in site A, B, and C, and whether that's a change of ownership or it's a licence. Those discussions are still to take place. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister. And something that has been raised in the States Assembly in the past is the Public Realm project, or the Public Realm project, being led by Deputy Tom Binney. Have you seen any terms of reference for this? Is this related to what is being halved in the Public Realm budget?
So we've got a town task force, I think is the term, which will report to the Regeneration Steering Group, and we'll be working with the Deputy Chief Minister and that task force. So I would hope to think that we can do more within St Helier. For this budget, we've had to make some tough calls, as I said earlier, and we cannot continue to do what has happened historically. And as I said, I think the previous government have made a start of being realistic. We've got to be realistic about what we can deliver.
Thank you. So the Minister, in your letter, it underlines the fact that a number of construction projects, including 3 school projects and the Ambulance Fire and Rescue Headquarters, have been delayed to 2026, or not happening, or very unlikely during this government term. How is this prioritisation determined in line with the government's common strategic policy for these specific points?
Well, it's like a jigsaw with moving parts. The key element in that area is for us to get ownership of the land at Gas Place so we can build a town primary school. The plan then is to relocate the pupils from Rouge Bouillon School whilst we refurbish that area and the emergency services area there. Then we would look to bring back the children from that catchment area to Rouge Bouillon and then move the children from 2 other town schools into a new purpose-built school. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes in terms of planning, feasibility, etc. And I think we have to be realistic. We're not going to do that this year, in the next 12 months.
And is it planned for the money to be put in to buy that land, which, as you said, is the start of the jigsaw piece, put in for before the end of the government term budget?
Well, I think it would be, in terms of a negotiation point, I don't think we should be putting a number in the budget because I dare say the people we negotiate with will want that and more. So I'd like to think we can negotiate and then come back for the money. Yeah.
So is the idea then to negotiate this year to then be able to say, start that jigsaw?
I think I'd say in the next 12 months. I'm not sure if it's going to happen before the end of this calendar year.
Can I just ask about the fire and ambulance, because obviously that's been an ongoing issue for at least a decade. Do you think the fire and ambulance is still going to be fit for purpose, given all the delays and the lack of investment in that area?
As far as I'm aware, we will have to spend some money on it, but we can't have people operating in facilities that aren't practical. Can we improve? Of course we can improve. But it is about the priorities, and I think the Home Affairs Minister, the Education Minister and myself are aligned on what we want to achieve.
So thank you, and of course the panel will request more information on each of these delayed projects and the money and the resources after this as well. But for instance, in your letter, it was mentioned that Montalabe Secondary School project is delayed to 2026. But could you explain, Minister, how what stage was the plans, etc., up to before this delayed project? So how developed was it?
So we've acquired the land that's needed for that project, and in fact we've agreed to let a farmer use that land for the coming 12 months. The work continues. There's a feasibility study. So I think it would be wrong to put down that we're going to start the work in 2025 if we physically cannot start the work in 2025. Yeah, the work on the project will continue in terms of the feasibility studies. So I just think it's, you can say that these things have stopped. Well, they haven't stopped. The work continues. It's about being realistic as to when we can physically start work and also when we can physically finish works.
Of course, and it's how it's of course was written in the letter.
Yeah,
in that sense, it's why we're questioning how that looks, because yes, we were led to believe also the land's purchased, the plans were ready to go. And so
if I could
therefore,
write this letter today, then it would be a more considered response. Unfortunately, with annual holidays, etc., the time that I had to spend on the letter wasn't enough. I think with reflection, my wording around Fort Regent would have been better, for example. But we tried to meet the timelines to respond. I think we were a couple of days late, perhaps, but that's a challenge we have with the summer recess.
And it's an interesting just on that, because it feels and that you're saying that the work is still going on these different projects. It's just the case of it's not the spade in the ground. But for example, there was in 2024 £1 million had been put aside for Montalabé Secondary School. So what's been spent of that 1 million? Like what has happened? Because that doesn't seem to be just for feasibility study. I feel 1 million is the start of developing.
I think I've been absolutely shocked by the amount of money we spend on professional fees and planning fees. I don't know if you want to come in.
I'm not sure there's much to add, Minister. There is, throughout the life of a project, at every stage, we need to confirm the requirements, detail the scope, and often the departments that are looking to confirm those requirements don't have the resources within themselves to be able to do the work that sort of delivers that output. So at every stage, there is a requirement for additional resources to detail the number of classrooms, the scope, scale, and for each of those sort of requirements, there's then a requirement for mechanical and electrical engineering, for structural design.
So that 1 million would go to all this, which has been done this year, I suppose.
And I think some of that 1 million was spent on purchasing the land as well. So.
And this is a similar question, I guess, for Liscay Youth Centre, extension refurbishment. Again, there was 3.5 million allocated for 2024. What's happened? How far is that gone through? I was led to believe it would be a phased approach, for example, and therefore to stop it in its momentum, I guess, I'm assuming there must have been plans to. We're just trying to work out how the priorities are when these seem so far have been moved quite far ahead.
So it's SIPES are the customer, and so we work with them. As I said, it's tough decisions, but if we look at the north of town, we have to have a provision for all of the for the existing families and all of the new families that we plan to bring into St Helier. And so I think we've made the right decision. We've got a facility at Liscay, just like the emergency services will have to make sure that it's maintained. But the priority is around getting a new facility. And we're also working, as I've mentioned in the Assembly, we're working on getting access to the school estate out of hours. It seems totally wrong to me that we've got a gate between a lot of housing and the FB fields, and people have to go around the road and come back in again. And so simple things like that, we can give people access to somewhere where they can.
And of course, Liscay is attached to Samurai, so this is but we're just trying to work out what's this year happened to that 3.5 million, the works that has gone on this year, and therefore. Because I believe it's now going to be delayed till 2028. Yeah. So what work has?
That's an operational decision that's been taken by SIPES. We are the delivery agency, so it's not something that we will have decided off our own bat, sort of unilaterally. And again, SIPES will have considered how they can manage their requirement, how they can provide the facilities that they're expected to, at the same time delaying what's coming down the track. No. So I don't have the specific details, but it's something that's been talked at a level and in the context of the whole budget and the whole estate rather than these specific items.
No.
But I mean, my question is probably the same as the chair, which is, where do we then as scrutiny or the Assembly see this money going? And how do we see that what work has been done, especially given the commitments of the government to follow the 2024 government plan made at the beginning of this new government's term? We expect money has been spent, and it should be quite clear, I would hope, to the estates and Jersey Property Holdings where it's spent and the impact of changing tack, whoever direct at, whether it be SIPES, JPH, or any part of the government?
I think it's a reasonable question, and we'll have to come back to you
Okay, thank
with the detail.
We'll follow up then. And the letter also said about Highlands College being delayed, and Minister, you've already mentioned why, but we're just wondering about the impact that particular upgrade on Highlands College is going to have on teaching and training provision, which I understand you're saying, of course, this is a relationship with SIPES, and it's something something that we can then talk with our scrutiny colleagues about the question. But from a technical, from the infrastructure itself at the moment and what is there now, having this delay, what impact do we see would it have on teaching and training provision with the building itself and not being able to be?
Well, I think it's in page 2 of the letter. It talks about Highlands repairs. So again, we're committed. You know, we had an issue at Highlands at the weekend with the storm. And so the team would have been there at the weekend and this week assessing the damage and putting in place repair programs. So where we're not able to do something, we've still got to make sure that the buildings are safe for staff, pupils, visitors. So that work will continue.
Thank you. And this then goes into Victoria College. The feasibility work has been cancelled. As per your letter, what impact do you believe the cancellation will have on the safety of students and the facilities?
Well, I recently walked around the campus with the head teacher and one of the chair of governors. It aged in parts, the school. I think there are improvement opportunities at the school. There was some concern about subsidence, but we've been reassured that that's not a problem. So with that reassurance, I think we're able to delay that work. You know, it is SIPES are our customer, so it's not Property Holdings and infrastructure making these decisions. We liaise with our client.
Understandable. Understand that. And I suppose that's the last question. Could you explain the Fields Development and Play Space project, which has been rescoped and cancelled, which we'd be interested to understand what rescope and cancelled mean related to that?
I have to turn to my right, I'm sorry.
That's SIPES have had an aspiration to provide 3G pictures for all of the schools, and there had been a schedule that had been proposed based on capital funds availability. That's changed, and there's still an aspiration to provide those playing fields, but it's been moved right, and smaller sums will be allocated in each year, but the overall outcome will be the same.
So we are getting pre-planning advice on a facility for First Tower School. I'm not sure where we are with that pre-planning advice, but I did ask for an update on that last week and was assured that was happening.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Minister. David.
Just want to talk about the schools. I'm trying to get my head around. You've got SIPES. You're the customer of SIPES. We're talking about here. So basically, if SIPES don't have the money, then infrastructure don't do the work. Is that how it works? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, it's an interesting relationship because SIPES receive money for maintenance. We receive money for maintenance. And we're in the process of agreeing service level agreements with the head teachers and Property Holdings, so everybody knows who's responsible for what. That's certainly not the case. Only last week I walked around a school with members of Property Holdings and pointed out that how poor the condition of the building was in. Now, some of that was at low level height, which potentially could be done by the resident caretaker. Other works are at height, which I wouldn't expect a caretaker to carry out. And so this service level agreement will make it very clear once and for all as to who is responsible for what. And so we don't end up with everybody pointing at each other. We end up with schools and other government buildings that are better maintained. And, you know, the funds need to follow where the repairs are going to be done by. So I'm hoping I'm confident we will see improvements in that area in the coming 12 months.
Will this include a memorandum of understanding between Property Holdings and the SIPES facilities team?
Yeah, so the idea is that the government owns the building, SIPES are the tenants, probably Holdings are the landlord. But at the moment, there's a lot of grey areas as to who's responsible for what. And so what we're trying to do is clarify that and make it very clear as to who is responsible for what elements of the maintenance of each property. So I think a lot of work's been done between the departments. There's been some dialogue with head teachers, and we're just, it doesn't make sense for us to have 30 contracts for gutter maintenance, for example. It makes much more sense to centralise that and say, right, what's the best deal we can get? And those are the kind of thoughts and processes we're going through, putting that in writing so that ultimately the school estate is better maintained than it currently is, and that benefits the island and the people that use the buildings.
Thank you. I'll just pass over to Alex now.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, could you provide us, as a panel, a bit more detail about the Fort Regent project, which is recently being suggested to be progressed with the States of Jersey Development Company, and what was the brief provided by government to SOJDC for the development?
So the work has started there. And again, I think that the previous government have been doing some work in that arena. I think we need to be realistic. I think a previous government were looking at plans there which were £240 million. We're not looking at that kind of money. We're looking at around the £80–90 million. We are currently scoping that out. We've got to ensure that the building is safe. It's an historical building of great importance. It's one of the best examples in Europe of a fort. We are working with them. There's going to be a lot of stakeholder consultation required. And so I'm hopeful that we can come up with plans in the not too distant future to get consultation on. I think it's got to be affordable for people to use. I don't subscribe to the casino model. I think it's got to be affordable for locals and visitors alike.
Yeah.
And, I think we've got to look forward, but equally learn from what we had there in the past, where we had something for all age groups, and I think that's the aspiration at the moment.
And regarding how this will work, do you think that the States of Jersey Development Company have sufficient internal expertise to deliver this project, or do you think they'll be, can they do this without using external consultants?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I received a letter only in the last 10 days from an architect asking for local architects to be involved. I would hope that would be the case. I think there's enough work being done in the past in terms of scoping, and we don't need to reinvent what's already been done. We need to look at what's been done in the past and try and take the best bits. But again, we've got to make sure that whatever we put there is viable and that we can maintain what we've got there. It's pointless us building something that we cannot maintain. We've got to be realistic, and I'm fairly confident we can find solutions.
Okay. I do know in the last annual report and accounts that SOJDC have 17 employees, of which 5 are part-time. So I just wanted to understand more about the context as to the capacity. They've got a lot of capital programs going on, a lot of development work they'll be contracting for. What assessment was given that they had more capacity then, especially if using external consultants, running this out of government as it is a government site?
Well, I think we see the States of Jersey Development Company as one of our arm's length organisations that have got expertise. And so we feel that for us to progress this, we need support, and it seemed appropriate to talk to them about giving us that support. I can ask that question when we meet them. I think it's in the next couple of weeks about their resources.
Okay, I think that would be useful. Regarding kind of that model, you mentioned previous models. What direction are you considering providing on free community access at the fort?
Well, I think I was asked that similar question in the Assembly this week, and I would like to think that we can get people up there so they can use the gardens, etc. Use the skate park, which is part of the aspirations. But that it's too early for me to make a formal commitment. We aspire to get accessible, but I don't want to tie people's hands if it's. It's got to be affordable, whether that's free or a small cost.
Yes, sir.
I mean, don't you think the people of Jersey would find it totally unacceptable if they had to pay for access to the external areas before?
I personally don't want that to happen. But what I want to do is to make sure that what we put there is sustainable. Yeah. So that discussions hasn't taken place. We've asked for schemes and ideas as to how we can make it viable. So we're in the early days of that, and I'm sure that'll be part of the consultation. And I'm sure we can all imagine what the feedback will be. The public, I imagine, will be like me and want free access.
Okay, and another quick fire on the fort. Is it the intention that the Fort Regent remains in public ownership for the continued use of the whole community?
I believe that is the case. Yeah.
Great. And on the same topic, what consideration are you giving to using the States of Jersey Development Company for supporting other pieces of regeneration for the government on other public-owned land for public benefit?
Well, the States of Jersey Development Company have done a lot of work at the waterfront, continue to have ideas and suggestions and thoughts on the waterfront, which, the recent plans were turned down, but they're working hard on that area. They've just taken on the South Hill project. And I think it's about us trying to work with our government-owned bodies to try and leverage that expertise that we've got available to us rather than duplication.
And lastly on that, obviously the current model means that a project run from government can be scrutinised, can be amended by states members, can be directed, and obviously can be scrutinised directly to the minister and their officers. Where do you see as a minister the ability to either act as if you are going to take that direction of this partnership with ALOs further, where do you see that conduit to ensure that the states has as much direction as it has in previous years, or do you think it doesn't need that?
We're not looking to outsource responsibility. We're looking to outsource capability. So where we've got people and organisations that are experts in their field, we should actually leverage that and sweat those resources.
Yeah, and if it's considered that our ALOs, being such small organisations, don't have that capacity in-house, will you revert back to looking at procuring that directly as government rather than using them as a conduit?
Yeah, I think we have to look at all the options. Yeah, but I do think we've worked closely with the SOJDC on the Western Bus Gateway, and I think they've added a lot to that discussion. So I think we've got to try and work with the resource that's available to us.
Could I just add that in my time in the States, we've had buildings sitting empty, like the former JCG was empty possibly 15 years. A number of people looked at it. It was only when we tasked SOJDC with getting that job done that it got done. So they have a track record, which I think gives us confidence as a government that if we give something to them to do, they will get on with it.
And I guess that's why the question that Deputy Curtis asked, which is there any other considerations for any other sites coming forward than the ones that you've mentioned? But I'm not hearing from the Minister anything at this moment that is being considered for them to take on further.
The Regeneration Steering Group meets regularly with SOJDC, and I think if that group finds that there are public realm projects that need delivery that we don't have the capacity to deliver as a government, then that certainly would be a possibility.
Thank you. Deputy Coles.
So you mentioned earlier about the Islands Construction Engineering Programme that has been launched, which gives the combined view of all engineering and construction projects either in progress or being planned for delivery over the next 10 to 12 years by government and the Ports of Jersey and the SOJDC. What impact have the cancellation and delays had on this project, on this programme, and what pressures and time challenges has it identified?
Well, I think, firstly, I should pay tribute to the staff that are leading in this area. I think you've had a brief. Have you had a briefing on this? Yeah. I think it's a terrific piece of work, and I should also pay tribute to the bodies that you mentioned who have participated in those discussions and been very helpful. And I think the ICE programme actually helps us make some of the decisions, the tough decisions we have to make. It's not just about financial resource, it's about the people resource to do work. And so, what we don't want to do is to overheat the construction industry or deflate the construction industry. We're much better to have a steady flow of works that maintains the resource that's required. In fact, on Monday, we're doing a presentation to the construction industry, launching the ICE programme to them. So I think it's a very good tool. It's an enabler. It certainly helps us as politicians understand the pressures. We've got hopefully we've got the new hospital. We've got all of our infrastructure projects as well as other capital projects. So I think it helps us. I think it's a good tool. And I think it's long overdue probably.
Yeah, but has it identified any pressures or challenges so far in its operation?
Is that no?
Not that I'm aware of them. I think the overwhelming response is that despite sort of the feast or famine that have characterised the recent capital programmes, where, as the Minister said, we've aspired to a programme of 100 plus million pounds a year, when actually we don't have the capacity to deliver, means that there's confusion in the industry, that maybe there are stops or starts. And I think that their desire to have a smooth, achievable, deliverable programme means that they support it. I'm not sure that there's actually been anything. I don't know, Andy, if you've got any.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge we've got, there's a lot of expenditure within that programme. That is a sort of 10-year look. I think the reprofiling of government capital hasn't had a significant effect on the 10-year look. It is a smoothing out of our own capital to be more realistic about our own delivery. However, the biggest parts of that programme, certainly Andium, SOJDC, the hospital programme, are bigger spends than the government capital programmes. So if you look at that, the number as a whole hasn't really changed fundamentally. The biggest challenge I think we have currently is just getting the timing of those projects out to market for the private sector to be confident about when they're gearing up to deliver those projects. And I think a lot of this is the biggest challenge we are facing is probably the next we're in that process now, that 18-month outlook in terms of just consumer confidence, consumer finance, development finance. Some of that is outside of the control of government, obviously, but the more we can do with the programme to give confidence that things are coming, it gives industry confidence that they can see some light at the end of the tunnel. So I think some of the challenges are outside of our gift really, because of I guess it's just financial pressures. But we're seeing some of the loosening of that just starting to happen now. But
so you don't anticipate any cancellation, any issues from the cancellation and development projects on development and construction industries?
No, I think what the benefit that public sector schemes have is, we should be counter-cyclical to private sector schemes, so that when consumer finance and people buying private homes or leasing private offices starts to wane, and it will always do that, and then it will pick up again, the public sector schemes can step in and be counter-cyclical. So that, the need for affordable housing, the need for our health facilities we should be able to use this programme to match the funding to keep our industry going.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, obviously I get the idea of the counter-cyclical approach, but obviously we've recently seen the failure of yet another business, private sector construction business. It doesn't sound like we're getting the balance right, does it?
I think there will always be ups and downs in the construction market. That is a function of the construction markets. I think if we look back over the last 20, 30 years, there will always be companies in the ascendancy and doing very well, and there are some companies who will be doing less well. Some of that's depending on their order books, and there's a lot of other stuff that goes on behind the scenes, obviously. But I think what we are demonstrating with this programme is there is a lot of significant spend, and we should be giving that confident message out there. What the private sector do, the programme doesn't include private sector spend. So that is a conversation we want to have with the Construction Council about seeing if we can get some sort of profile on private sector confidence and spend in there. That's always been really hard to get because no one really wants to tell us. But that's something we want to add in just to see so we can see where the graphs are actually cyclical or counter-cyclical, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it will help the industry as a whole. It will help us as government, but I think the design of this is to help the industry, and the more people that input into it, then the better it will be. Yeah.
The panel would also like to know what's being done to ensure that local building firms are able to be competitive in tenders for government projects.
Well, I think this will give businesses the confidence to invest in their businesses, particularly in their people. And, you know, I keep referring to the physical resource as well as the financial resource. It's vital that we get younger generation involved in the construction industry. It's great to see so many girls involved in engineering, which is, 10 years ago we wouldn't have seen locally. And, we've got to continue to keep people coming through that pipeline because people retire every year. And so we've got to make sure we've got young people who see the construction industry as an attractive place to work. And, we've got to look at methods of building, all those things. And I do believe that the ICE programme will help us give confidence to organisations to invest in their people. And it will also help us, we mentioned Highlands earlier, what is coming on, what's changing, and we've got to get that skill mix as well.
And sorry, Minister, just to confirm, what you're saying is that to help build the skills and the people there will help local firms to be able to be competitive within the tendering for government projects at the moment.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Thank you for that. Connor Tarbes Johnson, if that's...
Let's go on to the question of liquid waste, unsavoury but necessary topic. Minister, you made it clear that liquid waste key infrastructure is necessary and not simply a nice to have. The budget states that in excess of £55 million is needed over 4 years, yet a total of 21.3 million is allocated in the budget, and you stated the investment from 2027 will be via a new funding model. Are you able to elaborate, please, on what that model might be?
Not on the detail, and I'd expect that we'll work with yourselves and other key stakeholders in working up what that model will be. But this government is going to have to come up with the legislative changes so that it can be introduced in a timely fashion. We can't keep avoiding the challenge. We've got to address it. And so we look forward to engaging with key stakeholders to see what options there are and trying to bring some legislation as soon as we can.
And leading on for that, can I assume therefore that a funding model of some kind will be proposed and be debated before the end of the present government term?
Yeah, that's my aim, absolute aim. Yeah.
And still on that subject, you mentioned in your recent letter to the panel that the MOFON capacity improvement project has been delayed in favour of the St Peters project, so the latter delivers a higher affordable housing yield. Forgive the figures, but total funding availability over 2024-26 has been reduced, and funding is uncertain for 2027 and beyond, which makes prioritisation and planning increasingly challenging. What certainty and security will the project have if the funding model, which you are due to propose, is in fact rejected?
Yeah, so we're reviewing that. We want to deliver homes clearly, and so we're looking at other sources of capital so that we can actually do the MO4 programme. I don't know if there's any update.
Yeah, I think what that highlight, the capital programme, when we publish it, invariably come the day two is invariably wrong because things always move. The capital programme as published is a moment in time on that day, effectively. The prices that we have in the capital programme effectively get sharpened up as we get closer to delivery, contracts are let. We've got a much clearer idea then on what project values will be and then what timing of delivery will be. So things invariably on the capital programme will always move. I think that's just the overall point to make on a published plan versus then what we are seeing. So capital programme is kept under constant review. Where we are seeing other forms of capital maybe slowing down for a variety of reasons. It may well be because we haven't had tenders back or the prices have come in too high. It gives the government an opportunity to say, well, can we use some of those capital funds to redistribute into other priorities? And that's something that council ministers will do on a regular basis to try and meet their priorities. So MOFON will be one of those schemes. It's still something we absolutely want to deliver. But if we feel some of the capital is slowing down elsewhere in the programme, we can use that cash flow for benefit elsewhere. So the MOFON scheme certainly is our intention. If we can at all get that in advance, we definitely want to deliver that. It's something that the team is ready to get on with. We know what we need to do in that area, and it will unlock housing both now but also capacity for the future. So again, it's just an example of how the capital programme always moves around. And to be honest, we could probably publish 200 versions of the capital programme through the year because things are always flexible and moving because we adopt a sort of cash flow approach to it, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you for that. Do I take it from that the uncertainty to which I referred should be less uncertain during the course of this government?
I think it's fair to say, David, we understand the importance and the urgency of MOFOR to unlock additional homes, and so we're doing whatever we can to find the funds for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. And you'll keep us informed of developments?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would hope we wouldn't do 200 versions, because that, to me, would seem to be very inefficient, so...
Okay. Slightly different topic. Can you please provide more detail on the development work on solid waste circular economy strategy mentioned in your letter to the panel in relation to policy work that you will be supporting?
Yeah, so that is work that's ongoing. I think we had hoped to do that this time, but as I said earlier, the CSP's commitment to keep government fees and duties as low as possible has meant that we've had to get funding from elsewhere. I think in terms of recycling and waste, I think we've got a lot of work to do there. You'll be aware that the Committee of Connotab recently had a presentation on that. My ambition is to get a uniformed service across the island. Currently, different parishes do different things. 3 parishes still don't do recycling. So, you know, for me, the more we can recycle, the less we need to put into the incinerator. Hopefully, the longer the incinerator will last. I really aspire to get cartons, Tetra Paks recycled. When I look at my waste, that is the biggest contributor to my dustbin, milk cartons and juice cartons. So lots of work there to do around the solid waste, and we would try and bring that in the back end of next year.
Okay. As you touched on a matter which I was actually going to raise in this section, but on recycling generally, yes, thank you. The Connotables have received a letter recently from yourself as to plans. Are you saying, therefore, that your intention is to introduce a uniform central waste collection service?
No. What I would like to do is to get the parishes to be aligned so that they collect in the same format where practically possible. I think the properties in St Helier may give us a different challenge, but I think the majority of parishes could be doing a uniformed style collection, and I think we need to pursue that, because I do think there could be efficiencies, and I do think it may be easier for all the parishes, but particularly the 3 parishes that don't do recycling. And I know they've struggled to get contractors, and I think if we make it simple and work together, we should actually be able to solve that issue.
Okay, well, I'll persuade my fellow constables to reply to your letter, including myself.
Thank you.
Thank you. My final question in this area is the generation of income from commercial and waste charges. In the government plan, it's acknowledged that to ensure that services could continue to be delivered, the states will need to consider alternative income sources, for example, commercial solid waste charges. where are you in the general scheme of things in investigating possible alternatives?
Well, I think there's been a huge amount of work done in terms of investigating. Again, we need to consult with key stakeholders on that. But it is wrong, in my humble opinion, that people can take truckloads of waste free of charge from commercial sites. And, you know, the general public are subsidising that. And so we need to look at our waste in a new way. I look at Guernsey with envy, actually, in terms of what they do. And I think we can learn from them. And I know my assistant minister went to Guernsey in March to look at that, amongst other things. And I hope to go soon to see as well.
So my question relates to urgency and priority. Again, is that something you anticipate you might have in hand or completed in some form by the end of your term?
Yeah, I'm not going to, I'll need the support of the council ministers and ultimately the Assembly, but I'm not going to avoid making tough decisions. You know, that's what I've been put in this job to do. It's not a popularity contest as far as I'm concerned. It's about making tough decisions that are right for the island, and both liquid waste and solid waste need addressing.
Okay, thank you.
One more question on waste, which is now inert waste. The budget suggests that the capacity for inert waste disposal at La Collette is expected to be fully used before the end of 2024. And of course, there are tables looking to provide the budget comparison to the loss of income. Could you just provide an update on whether inert waste capacity is still expected to be fully used by the end of 2024?
We looks like we're still going to be able to use, there's some space available during 2025, but for like 3 or 4 months into 2025. So we've still got capacity. As you know, we're going through a procurement process for inert waste at the moment, which is drawing to its conclusion. So hopefully we'll be able to update the scrutiny committee with that option of what that's likely to be.
Okay, so the first few months of 2025. At which point there'll be no capacity. And Minister, are you happy that the site will still be able to operate within that time, and that timelines for procurement will mean that you don't have a build-up of inert waste beyond your capacity?
The work that's been going on in parallel, the Planning Committee's decision recently was very helpful for us to give us that confidence. And so I am confident that we will have a solution in time. We're going to find ourselves with a different challenge when we come to coastline protection, because we're going to need materials, and it's just trying to get that bridge.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Deputy Ward.
So please can you provide details on sustainable transport work which will be delivered and the physical infrastructure which will result from this project?
Well, I think there's a lot we can do for relatively low expenditure, personally, and part of our walk around St Helier recently demonstrates that. And I think if you look at the wider island, you can see opportunities. We're currently out to tender for the bus contract. Hopefully, a decision will be made in the coming weeks. And ridership, for example, on the hopper buses are up by 79% this year because we've actually started to promote it. I think we could get much higher ridership on the town hopper. We've certainly got the capacity to do that. So that's a positive in itself. We in terms of sustainable transport, we are trialling park and ride at Le Canavay. The uptake, it's fair to say, is pretty low. We haven't been able to encourage commuters so far to take it up. It tends to be retirees who find it easier to park at the sports field than find a parking space in town. We think that there are a number of routes, and again, we've cycled routes in the east of the island trying to find ways, and I hope to convince some constables to stop through traffic on some roads, as has been done in St Clement's successfully, to make it easier for cyclists. We've got some rat runs in a couple of areas, which I think could be converted into cycling and walking friendly areas.
Sorry, just to sort of kind of continue on that sort of theme. Obviously, an active travel policy for St Helier, haven't seen anything delivered on that yet.
Yeah.
Is that something on a priority?
Well, I think.
Because obviously we've seen random roads shut down at the moment, but we don't seem to have an overall plan.
Well, I think.
Very helpful.
I think my assistant minister is be able to give you some assurance that we are keeping the pressure on to get that. We want a parking strategy. We want a walking and cycling strategy delivered, and we are constantly looking at that. We've looked at what we can do in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I expect to have a meeting in the next 2 weeks for an update on what we have delivered and what we're going to deliver, because we want to see action. We want to see action. And, there's a lot of work there. We've got some great people within the infrastructure department right across who work very hard for us. And it's just trying to streamline some of the processes. It takes forever to get decisions. I was talking to Councillor Grouville recently, 3 years to get a green lane. It's ridiculous, in my opinion.
I feel like I'm sidetracking a bit here.
Yeah.
I'll carry on with the
So,
question.
well, just on that, it's good to hear a minister who is interested in seeing a strategy and a plan, and then able to then make go from there and do point by point, so everyone knows the direction of travel. And for this, do you feel though that there is and because we're on the 2025 budget, that there is enough funding for you to be able to move that from plans and strategy to be able to move it to actually physical infrastructure, or being able to actually see some changes?
Okay.
Do you have enough budget?
I'll look at it slightly differently. Would I have liked more funding? The answer would be yes. Can we deliver with the funding we've got? Yes, we can. And it's about delivering what we can. There's some practical things we can do that won't be high cost. And I think we've just got to stop talking about it and start doing it. And I think that message has been heard loud and clear amongst the department.
Thank you.
Okay, so next question then is, what projects will be delivered using the climate emergency fund?
Can I perhaps answer that? I mean, to go back to your previous question about walking and cycling strategy and routes, we have in the past government, there was certainly an indication that the climate emergency fund would be appropriate for funding walking and cycling routes. And that's certainly, my intention is that once we get the plan from the department, and we know we need to put in some safe or even segregated cycle routes and more pedestrian crossings, particularly in the urban areas, then it would be appropriate to apply to that fund. And that's certainly my intention, that we should apply to that fund, because it is entirely consistent with its purposes.
Yeah, I think the Assistant Minister and myself are fully aligned that we believe that the climate fund should be used to improve the infrastructure rather than perhaps incentives for different forms of transport.
Thank you. So how will the savings and recruitment freeze impact infrastructure, and in which specific areas?
Well, I think our priority at the moment is looking at where we use consultants. We've had an over-reliance, in my opinion, on UK consultants. As I've mentioned, we've got some very talented people. We need to find ways of empowering those people. Clearly, there will always be a requirement for us to bring in expertise. There's only one energy from waste plant on the island, so it's pretty tricky to find experienced people to operate that, although we've got a lot of local people working in there. I know when I was on the State Employment Board, it took a long time to find somebody to come and head that up, and we have seen people transfer their skills within infrastructure. So that's our key priority, is around consultants. We do have some vacancies, but we are working with Jersey Business on productivity as a department, and I think we've got some work scheduled this month or next month.
We do, yeah.
Just to try and look, what can we do with the resource we've currently got? Clearly this budget means that we're not going to be doing certain things. So do we redeploy these people to do other things? And the active travel is a great example of where we've got people who may be doing one thing which we could divert them to do something else. Yeah.
Thank you. So what impact is the government's commitment to reduce the, well, I think you've actually said that. I feel like I'll cancel that question because you've just answered that. Transport and road safety review.
Yes, so I think, well, this you'll be glad to know is the end of the budget questions. But of course, Minister will be following up with the specific letters further because of our specific review on the budget.
I think we have do we not have a hearing about the budget?
We do not because
This is it.
because this is it because of the
Okay.
time frame within that. So unfortunately, it's the same with all the
Sure.
the scrutiny panels. Finding it hard to fit a specific scrutiny budget, but we will be following up with letters, and if need be, and we find some areas that we really feel we'll obviously get in touch with you. But going on to wider issues and current issues, I'd like to hand over to Deputy Coles.
Yes, thank you. So you've mentioned about the trial park and ride scheme from St Brillard's, which was in place until the end of August. Do you know if you had a regular users and how many permits were issued? An FOI response suggests that only 26 permits were issued by the end of July.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped, as far as I'm aware. And I think 26 is the number. I have asked for it to be published in the parish magazines in St Brillard's, of which there's 2. I also think there's opportunity for people that live in St Wands and St Peter's to use the same service. And we're keen to find other sites. You know, the park and ride works in a lot of areas. I think it's about identifying. We need to do more to tell people how the value of riding a bus is. And, you know, I'm desperate to see on the back of a bus the price comparison between a car park and a bus fare, because you can save considerable amounts of money. And I've said this before, we've been through a cost of living crisis and we didn't tell anybody that. So I think we've got to do more about promoting the value of the bus and the efficiency of the bus. And I would like to do more park and ride trials.
So what was your expectations and numbers for this service?
Well, I'm not surprised with the take-up because many years ago we tried in St John's. We did a survey. Lots of people were interested in the park and ride, and I think we had 2 people use the service. And what we did there was we extended the bus route from the church to La Fontaine Tavern, where there's a very large car park, and the buses were running up and down empty, so it was pointless in carrying it on. The good thing about this trial is it sits right alongside a very well served road with a number of buses that travel along it at a very frequent basis. So I think we need to do more to promote it personally.
Yes, and so you are considering other areas as well of the island.
We were welcome to suggestions,
In December 21, the then Minister of Infrastructure published the Islands Road Safety Review, which provides statistics and trends in Jersey and made a series of recommendations for improving the road safety of the island. Could you provide an update on the delivery of these recommendations and the work which is underway?
Yeah, I can. There were 23 recommendations, 10 of which are completed, 9 are in progress, and some are out. One is for 2027. In general, I think we are making good progress. I think we have been very lucky to recruit the head of that area, moved from another department actually, but brings a lot of experience. Some really good progress made with our colleagues from the police in terms of reporting. So they use a consistent method to report what's the word? I mustn't say accidents. What's that?
Collisions.
Collisions. Is that the word?
Traffic incidents.
What's it called? Just
Collisions.
collisions. I get told off when I say accidents. So there's consistent measurement of collisions, and I think the safe system approach is really good. In October, we're going to do a lot of work around tyre safety. You've got 2, 3 or 4 generally touch points on the road, and so not only the tread on a tyre but the pressure of a tyre is really important, so we look forward to doing that. We're working with colleagues in Justice Home Affairs around bringing forward legislation about drug limits because we see in the UK that drug driving is a bigger problem now than drink driving. And there's no reason to think that that may not be the same case here in Jersey. So we need to introduce limits, and we need to introduce roadside testing and give our colleagues in the police the ability to do the good work they did with drink driving and get this reduced.
You mentioned that there were some recommendations that have not been addressed yet. Can you just provide which ones they are in detail?
Well, all of them are either in progress. One is we're due to do a report in 2027, so a review in 2027. So you'll accept that that's not there. 2 have been superseded by the new government structures. So I think there's good progress there. We've got somebody working on the data. We produced a report recently about collisions. We're establishing the Road Safety Delivery Board. So I think there's some really good progress being made there. And again, if that's an area you would like to receive a briefing on as a panel, we'd be delighted to share that with you.
Yeah, and on a question on that, and Colin Sub, you are very much aware of this. I know that there has been now a little bit more of a spike again in racing at night.
Yeah.
What are the measures that have been put in place? For a while there wasn't, and is there any way to monitor? A lot of the cars are potentially spruced up. Is there a way of being able to put in place something around that to on the relation on the cars?
I feel we're straying into justice and home affairs territory, but I am very passionate about this.
Road safety.
Yeah, so we are eventually, hopefully in my lifetime, going to get some technology which we agreed, I think, in February, and the department continually has trouble in purchasing this technology, which is readily available, which will be a great addition to the armoury. We work very closely with the head of traffic policing, who is doing some very good work, actually. And, we are making progress. I think in my experience, good progress has been made, but there's a lot more to do. And I live right alongside a main road, and I hear vehicles at all times of the day and night. And it's not just young boy and girl racers. There are some people in some very expensive vehicles who also are driving far too fast on our roads. But I'm expecting the technology to be on the island within 9 weeks of the order being finally placed, and I cannot wait for that to happen.
No. In the Island Road Safety Review, one of the recommendations made is for a road safety strategy to be produced from 2022 to 2032. Please, can you provide an update on the progress of the strategy and what is the timeline for delivery?
So the work is progressing. I've just been told that the order has been placed today, so that's sorry, I was distracted. So the order has been placed today for that technology. The strategy is going to be ready, I hope, by the end of this year. We've got a fantastic officer who brings a wealth of experience and is due to go to Europe, actually, in the coming weeks to learn from colleagues in Europe. So we aren't just relying on what happens in the UK. We're looking further afield at best practice. So there is a lot of work, and I think it would be worth giving the panel an update on road safety and the progress that is being made. And as I said earlier, it is a combination of the work that's being done by infrastructure, but also collaboration with the police. And I have to say, I'm aware of the work that is being undertaken, and I'm sure a briefing would benefit the panel.
Very much so. In the Road Safety Review, a commitment was made for Driver and Vehicle Standards Department to align itself with many UK and EU practices in vehicle testing. Can you provide an update on what progress has been made with this?
Well, heavy goods vehicles are tested, motorcycles are tested. We have...
It's only 125 still, isn't it? Or motorcycles?
I don't trust them. Do you know the size of the motorbikes?
It's the light motorcycles.
Light motorcycles. We have delayed the car testing. I think there are other priorities. I think the Honorary Police, working with DVS and the State of Jersey Police, do a good number of roadside tests. Yes, it would be good to see more done, perhaps at different times of the day, perhaps to identify some of these modified vehicles. But vehicles are often taken off the road. And I think the testing of cars, I understand about the Vienna Convention, etc. But my personal view is that if you want to take your car away, then perhaps you should get a test. But I don't think we need to add costs to island motorists and the government to do it.
As promised in the Island Road Safety Review, has there been an introduction of periodic roadworthiness inspections? And if not, why not?
Yeah, that's what I just referred to, and I know, I forget the numbers now, but literally hundreds of vehicles are stopped at a time. You know, it is inconvenient for motorists, particularly when they're done early in the morning. But often vehicles are taken off the road, and I've seen some photographs of vehicles that have been taken off the road, which are quite appalling, really. And you know, it's something that the team do with DVS, liaising with their colleagues in the Honorary and the States Police.
How are you engaging and consulting with the motoring industry in regards to, you know, if someone turns up with a vehicle that's unroadworthy, maybe preventing them being able to drive off?
Well, that is the heavy goods drivers. We're trying to work with the industry, because if you appear at DVS and the only thing wrong with your vehicle is an indicator light isn't working, I believe that you should be able to send a video of the indicator light working, and we should be able to sign that vehicle off rather than you reappearing for another full test. You know, that costs a lot of money, it costs a lot of time, you're unproductive, and we need to work more in partnership with people. So if it's a minor thing that can be rectified quickly, I don't see why somebody would come back for another full inspection. So we are trying to work with industry.
Could I just test on that, actually? Because, of course, there are existing roadworthiness inspections for light motorcycles and heavy goods. Are you happy that the tests on these, especially with regard to light motorcycles, are proportionate to the requirement? And if you're uncertain, are you happy to receive feedback from the public with regards to their experience?
Yeah, I really couldn't comment on motorcycles, Alex, but I do know quite a lot about heavy goods vehicles, having run heavy goods fleets. So, yeah, I'd be happy to receive feedback about motorcycles.
One islander recently explained to me they were turned away with what was the first inspection of a vehicle that was 3 years old because the stock indicators were too close together and the number plate was 11 millimetres. The numbers weren't correctly spaced on a stock number plate. Is this the kind of feedback you want to see? You mentioned a change with regards to video feedback and stuff.
There's a huge amount of work being done around DVS, both from how we process things, customer experience, can we automate things? And I'm confident that we're going to see a better customer experience in the coming weeks and months.
And you're keen to see members of the public feedback through channels and escalate where needed?
By all means, yeah, by all means. We welcome, you know, one of the things we like is customer feedback. In fact, I had a briefing from the team only a week or so ago, and we do get a lot of feedback. You know, we do an awful lot of things. You know, we should, you see in restrooms, you see at airports where you can rate the service as you go through. Why don't we do that at the recycling centre? Because, yes, we occasionally get complaints, but the team there do fantastic work, and we should actually find a way of recording that and giving that feedback. And, yes, we can always make improvements, but I think we should do more to measure customer satisfaction.
Can I just add something just on the technical side?
Come to the microphone, please,
Just
sorry.
to add something on the technical side, just to give some sort of context. The standards that machines are approved to, obviously, are based on construction and use and national standards. So something like the distance between indicators, because it's very important in terms of depth perception for other drivers. And research in New Zealand, in particularly, found one way you can improve motorcycle safety is to have edge of handlebar lights, which gives drivers about an extra half or a second to react because they can perceive the depth. And so if you're not in compliance with your national standards, you also affect the safety of the rider, of that machine, and other users of the road. Just as kind of an example.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for that. I think we can pass on to the Connotab.
Yes, so before I'm an expert, can I, before we leave the question of roads, can I refer to a general matter which we touched on in correspondence regarding a parish matter? Has there been reduction in membership of your department or consultants which have affected the implementation of proposals regarding speed limits?
We have stopped using a UK consultant I'm not sure if that has or hasn't impacted in the short term. When it takes 3 years to implement a speed limit change, I'm not sure. And that's why I said we're looking at the processes. How can we streamline that process, and how can we make sure that we've got trained staff here in Jersey to deliver that?
Okay, I say, obviously take my own matter offline, but the basic situation is in a situation where a consultation process has been completed and, in quotes, all that was required was a ministerial decision. It is frustrating that...
If somebody puts a bit of paper in front of me, David, I'd be more than happy to sign it.
So can I draft that myself then?
Sadly not, and I can tell you that in St John's it's taken 3 years to introduce new speed limits, and we've got St Mary's and St Wands also waiting for changes and St Peter's also waiting for those changes. So this is part of the work we're trying to do in terms of streamlining things. We go out to consultation. We get the feedback, we go out to consultation again, and then we do it again, and sometimes a fourth time. And we just need to make some decisions, do some trials, which we're doing. We've got a trial in Trinity, we've got a trial on St John's Road. Those are trials, and we'll evaluate the feedback and then make a decision as to whether or not to implement the changes on a permanent basis. But I really think we can do more and quicker.
Okay, I think that my concern is about the actual preparation of one document, and if necessary, if your department can't do it, I think that perhaps the Lord Draftsman's office could do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the blockage is. It's certainly not a lack of support from me.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Thanks. On to the real question now.
Yeah. We're going to do a switch.
Thank you.
Just on, thank you. Just on the speed limit changes, there is, and I don't want to talk too long, I'm happy to speak outside the meeting, but there is quite a lot of coordination that needs to go on, because speed limit changes in one parish have to, of course, be agreed with the adjoining parishes. So St Mary's has been taken forward with St Peter's and St Wands, because you don't want a speed limit to change just because it occurs on a parish boundary. So there's that coordination piece, and then there is, of course, the processes that were set out in the agreed island-wide speed limit framework, which was agreed with the Honorary Police, the States Police, and all of the Committee to Connotar. So that does add that in. Now, that island-wide speed limit framework work will be coming to a close at the end, well, sometime in 2025, and then we'll be back to more ad hoc changes. But this has all been built into a holistic one where we've been going around from parish to parish.
Yeah, thanks, Tris.
So to clarify, are you saying that individual ones arranged, which have been done in collaboration with neighbouring parishes, they have to wait until the full island-wide is?
No, not at all, no. Yours is one of the west of the island there is one of the last ones to be done. But of course, the other parishes joining you have to agree their changes. And then for efficiency, the parishes are brought through together as one change at the same time. And part of that, of course, is agreeing the sites where the poles are going to go, getting the poles up and everything to go. So there's not all the parishes proceed at the same pace, and we've only got so much resource to speak to each roads committee at one time.
We're going to speed up the process, David, I assure you.
Okay, well, thanks, O'Neill.
And then we move on, and I
Take it
think,
online.
yes, and to your other connotals,
Yes, well, they
as
already
well.
know, but there we are. Yes, on the question of sea lettuce, in July 2024, it was reported that more than 3 times the amount of sea lettuce have been harvested this year compared to the previous year, and you reported as providing the annual costs for removal as £250,000. It's been an ongoing process, I know, but what, if any, long-term plans are there for the management of nitrates? Or is that, in fact, your area, or would you thrust that towards the environment?
Well, this is a combination of environment, infrastructure, and economy, because economy obviously are responsible for beaches. We have the pleasure of not only cleaning but paying for the cleaning of the beaches. I think we should recognise, and I've said this a number of times, the progress made by the agricultural community in terms of where they use nitrates. I think there's further progress to be made, but we should recognise the progress they've made. I was recently walking at Balroyal, and the beach was clean except for an area outside the outfall. So it's quite clear to me. I've been asked to talk to people about trenches, which I think we may have tried in the past, and someone else has asked to talk to me about shellfish and their ability to remove nitrates, both of which I'm happy to explore. And, you know, we've spent significant sums of money at the sewage treatment works, which you've seen firsthand. We had hoped that would help us. I think it does help, because it could have been worse this summer without those interventions. So I'm keen to look at some areas which in the past have been discarded and try again.
So have these plans been specifically about to start work on, or at the moment?
No,
it's
people
just in an initial,
interested
but not.
parties have contacted me about that, and I said I'd be happy to talk to them. So
it's your intention, hopefully, to have this more long-term plan before
yeah, I do
the end of
think
the government term.
I do think we'd be much better further reducing the amount of green waste we've got to collect from the beaches rather than continue to collect it. So I do think we should look at what options are there. Officers potentially have looked at all of those things in the past and will tell me they won't work. I'm happy to look with a fresh set of eyes and see if a trial is worth doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Finally, on another topical matter, could you update the panel on the Legionella discovered at the Lake Anneve Sports Centre and the action being taken?
Absolutely. The team discovered this when they were testing the water. It takes some 2 weeks to prove whether there is a problem or not. So closing the showers was absolutely the right thing to, or not opening the showers was absolutely the right thing to do. It's unfortunate that it takes some 2 weeks to find out whether it's positive or negative. Clearly, we're flushing the pipes, but again, I praise the team for discovering that and communicating in the way they've done. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Curtis.
Right. We said we'd get back to it, which is seashore defences and flooding.
Sure.
So if you could, Minister, provide a status update on the development of coastal flood alleviation scheme for Havre Par and the Greve des coastal areas, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we've had 6 facilitated workshops, which were between 2 and 3 hours in length. I think some 65 people attended the workshops. I think there was general support for what we're trying to achieve. Why wouldn't you want to protect homes and businesses in that area? I think the events, we wrote to 2,500 local residents. We've published information in the parish magazines. We knocked on doors of businesses, so we've done an awful lot of work there. And the overwhelming support for advancing the line and new promenade and gardens. So that feedback is now getting collated into a report, and then that will then come to us during October, I think, and then we'll look at that and see how we develop it. You know, we want the community to have input into what we put there, and I was asked last week about the delay in the public realm work at Havre Par. Well, I think it's absolutely right to slow down, because if we're going to do public realm in front of the road, why would you do public realm on the road? And so that's part of the decision-making process.
Obviously, going into those 6 consultations and all the stakeholder engagement, there were, let's say, concept plans and assumption as to what the advanced aligners kind of looking like. What feedback is standing out as, positive? Are there ideas that, the department are receiving that they're excited about? Yeah, I know you're in collation phase, but, is this really a chance that you're seeing feedback that you'd like to act on that might positively change and improve the scheme for residents?
Yeah, I think Advance the Line is the one that gets the overwhelming support rather than raising the wall up high. So, by advancing the line, it gives us a lot of opportunity to provide public realm, to provide recreational space, and also, importantly, to provide potential for cycle and walking networks towards the east of the island. So I'm really encouraged by the feedback. I think, again, we've got great people leading on that, great team, And so I'm quite excited by that work. It's again a massive undertaking, between 70 and 100 million pounds. 70 and 100 million pounds. That's our annual expenditure on the island's infrastructure on one project. So it's significant.
Okay. And the panel obviously know the areas focused within the shoreline management plan.
Yeah.
But since that publication, are there any new areas of concern or risk in terms of flooding that are currently being investigated?
From a shoreline perspective?
Or inland?
Or inland. Well, clearly, Gros remains an area of concern. Again, I'd pay tribute to the teams. I was being informed last Thursday and Friday throughout the weekend, regular intervals, I was given updates on where we were. And I think it's testament to the work that has been done that we didn't have an event in Gros this weekend. Can we do more? I think we can with investment, but I think we should recognise the good work that's been done that prevented an incident this weekend. We saw, huge amounts of water in a very short period of time. But the team, because they monitor that, the drains were all clean beforehand, diversions of water were made, and so I think credit where credit's due. But it does. I have to say I was happier on Sunday evening after the storm had passed than I was on Sunday evening when the storm had passed than I was on Saturday evening when it was approaching.
Great. I mean, you've preempted where I wanted to ask, which was a bit more detail on Gros and of course, following the flooding in 2023, then panel heard from the minister that lessons had been learned and recommendations had come from those. I wonder if you could touch on what those recommendations were, and are those the actions that have led to obviously a positive outcome, and also any kind of progress on implementing them that has not yet finished but is kind of in the works.
I'm going to hand over to the experts.
I think the answer to that is part and part. So some of the big recommendations from that bit of work were that we need to look at the catchment as a whole and the water system as a whole. That includes everything north of the catchment. It's a very big. It's Jersey's biggest catchment area, Gros. We need to look at the entire catchment, including the reservoir and the Jersey water infrastructure, as well as our own, as well as parish infrastructure. So there's 2 parishes there as well. So there is more coordination between parties. We are working better with parishes in terms of cleanliness and who's doing what in terms of preempting water coming through. We've also looked at some of the diversions of how water does flow through that catchment and what hits the foul sewer in various places and the surface water drains in surface. So there's still ongoing work on that. We haven't done any significant capital works to increase capacity, but we do know where we need to target our efforts. We have provided some initial capacity by use of pumps and things like that over, that this weekend's been an example of that. We can pump from one area to another. We still do need to do more work with Jersey Water as to how we are working in concert with them, because we fundamentally believe that the system as a whole can work together to manage quite a significant amount of flood risk there. So we've done some, but I don't think some of the more significant recommendations have yet to be delivered.
Okay, and lastly from me, before in case anyone else had another one.
Just a quick one on this one. I know controversially it was between infrastructure and Jersey Water around about the level in the reservoir. On this occasion, was the level of the reservoir lower than lowered deliberately or not? It wasn't.
The reservoir was full up.
Was full up. Okay, thank you.
So lastly, just touching on those recommendations, the former minister mentioned the production of a flood assessment report, which I presume would include those conversations, a more wider plan. Is there an update or a timeline you could share on progressing that report and its publication?
So we haven't got anything live on a flood assessment report as such. I think the answer I've just given in terms of some of the specific infrastructure changes that we want to see, we are currently just looking at. We've got to, going back to the previous conversation about budget, we've got to make sure our money is being spent in the most appropriate place. So are we talking about significant sort of drainage upgrades, or can we do some interceptions further up the catchment to make sure water is flowing away from the catchment? We're just looking again at that, because as the more we manage the situation, the more ideas come out in terms of how to manage that water. So we haven't got that report yet, but I'm hoping that we we can certainly keep scrutiny up to date and in terms of our thinking.
We may want to ask for a timeline on that in the future.
Yeah, well, I have visited the site with Jersey Water. I've spoken to officers. I've also spoken to the rural economy about the potential for farmers to receive recognition for making land drains. Because what we do have in a lot of areas which historically would have had a land drain, those have been lost. And so we see areas around the island, some that contribute to this, but all around the island where we see flooding, where we've never seen flooding before. And I think if we could reintroduce land drains and give the farmer some recognition for not using that area of land, just as we do have the ability with field paths, I think that would be something worth considering.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we're moving on to Deputy War on estate management.
Sure, my favourite topic of mine at the moment. Please, could you tell the panel which team and which budget will be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the new government headquarters?
Well, firstly, we should say that last week the government headquarters were handed over on time. It's been delivered on budget, but also the project has received accreditation for accessibility from Liberate for its it got a gold standard for
Into areas.
IT standard is
IT standards is really in the top echelons. And what was the
The building research establishment assessment model, which is a measure of sustainability, and it is the highest rated sustainable office in the Channel Islands at the moment.
Yeah, so that was terrific. So the building will be come under property holdings as all other government buildings do.
So next question then. So please could you update the panel on whether the ownership of the Grave Delect site has been transferred to National Trust?
It hasn't as of yet. We're still in dialogue with colleagues in infrastructure about accessibility for the buses, and I hope that's going to be resolved in days rather than weeks or months. Yeah. We'd like to maintain as much parking. I would like to maintain as much parking as possible, and that message has been received by the department.
Yes, sorry, I don't ask questions about my own parish all the time, but yeah, I was aware that the property was transferred to the states initially. Is it purely the negotiations with Jersey Bus which are holding it?
No, it's not Jersey Buses, it's internal, so I expect that to be resolved fairly quickly.
Okay, so it's not handover isn't subject to any further plans that National Trust themselves have to do with it? No. Okay, thank you.
I think, quite rightly, people saw an opportunity to create a Alsing and Aldonton bus terminus. I don't think that's what we voted for. I think we voted to buy that land for the National Trust to give accessibility, and I think we've got to maintain as much of the parking as we possibly can. And there are alternatives for the bus, and I think the team have gone away to look at those alternatives.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question is, do you have any update on the tender process for the Philip Lefevre house?
I don't actually. What happens with the tenders is we don't get any inkling of what's happening, and I can say that with my hand on my heart, whether that's about solid waste, whether that's about buses or Philip Lefevre house, we don't get any indication of what's happening. Yeah.
All right. So just to follow up on that, do you believe that housing is still the right use for this site?
Well, the Bridge and Island Plan identified the site as housing. I think if we're to realise the maximum value of the site, then you would look to put housing there. But I also appreciate the thoughts about putting a park with parking underneath. And I think we need to wait to see what tenders we get and see what value they bring, because when you walk down Ann Street, as we did last week again, and around that town, the realisation of how many units of accommodation comes home. Yeah.
And so is that tender open for kind of alternatives as well, or is the tender just specifically calling for housing in the sense of having imagination for other things as
Yeah.
well that could potentially be in that site.
I'm going to have to ask.
The tender is sale of the combined site. So if somebody wants to put a park on it, then that's absolutely fine. The use isn't defined. The availability of the site is, as the Minister says, we will identify once the tender review process has been through what our subsequent actions will be.
And just to check on that, so obviously the complication with the ownership is aside from this, but Jersey Property Holdings currently act in the landlord function for that to CLS, just as they do with the education estate?
So in terms of the administration and the governance of the ownership, then absolutely. You're right, there is an element of the Social Security Fund that's involved, but that's a sort of an equity aspect. But the governance and the administration of the premises, the building and the transaction is looked after by Property Holdings.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Finally, on this, please could you give an update on the half-day power pool and the Lido contract? Or Lido?
Lido.
Is it Lido or Lido? I never can.
There's no contract for the Lido. The contract with the tenant expired 3 years ago, and they've been served notice to quit in October. We hope to go out to tender for the Lido. I think we would like to see it utilised for the community. We're just out to tender for some works to be carried out down there. I don't know if that tender's closed or...
The tender's closed and will be evaluated in a week's time.
Yeah. So that's, again, significant investment in the property. I could have chosen my words much better in the Assembly when I said it was a liability. It is an asset of the island and one that we're responsible for. So we're going to go out in quarter four for tender to see what people would like to use the property.
And so is there funding in 2025 to then maintain from the maintenance of half-day power with that tender that you're talking about?
It's part of our role in maintenance. So we've spent £300,000 in recent time, and we plan to spend another £500,000. So yeah.
And that's put in the budget.
Yes.
Yes.
And just on that then, and you've talked about it to be maintained as a community space. How are you trying to ensure that that's community space, and what with all the different facilities there, how to ensure that that will remain for the public and for future facilities there?
Well, I think
will that work?
I think that's hopefully we've got ideas. Clearly, other people have got ideas, similar ideas, I think, and we'll look to see what the tender process brings in terms of usage of the site. But
so the tender process is for the maintenance of half-day power,
No.
tender process is for the use of the site?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was for the maintenance. So the maintenance.
Well, we're going to see if people are interested in taking on the site, but I cannot see anybody maintaining the site without support of the government. There will need to be government support, I'm sure, ongoing government support. Yeah.
We have had discussions in the past trying to find agencies or interested parties to take on the site, but it has its challenges. It's inundated twice daily, so it'll be interesting to see what emerges.
Could I just check what that kind of those different things were? Because I think that was just a little hard to understand. Has there just been a tender for repair works that's gone out and coming in? That was published, closed, and being reviewed right now. And you're seeking a tender for the occupation of the commercial space, which has yet to be put out to tender.
That's
but there were two tenders, one for repair, and the proposed maintenance work as covered by the what must have been submitted tenders. Will that require vacant occupation of the site for a time, or will any tenant, current or future, be able to operate from the site?
I don't know the answer to that question.
So there are various aspects to the work that's been tendered. Primarily, it's the construction of the pool area, the sluice gates, the functioning of it as a swimming facility. There are also aspects of the external aesthetic appeal, so it will not require vacant possession for that work to be undertaken. However, as the Minister says, it's our intention to secure vacant possession in the autumn in order to allow us to then go to tender for ideas of running activities and operation of the site.
Thank you. Just looking at my panel if they have anything else.
I have, but I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask the question, that's all.
I think if we've got answers to those
Okay.
questions, I think that's fine for now. So I am pleased to say that we're at the end of our over 41 main questions, but we had lots of sub questions. So I think within a 2-hour session.
I would just add, I think we may still have a placeholder for a budget meeting that may or may not take place, so just for the Minister to be
Fantastic.
ready in case things change.
I was about to add that I'm sure we will be having another budget session, I was hoping, because I know that a lot of the questions that we asked at the beginning, you mentioned that obviously you are the holders of the infrastructure, but you get other like SIPES and other departments request that. And I think it will be important for us to liaise with other scrutiny panels to understand that and then be able to come back to you at the end and understand more on that. So I was hoping to look over and see if we could have another session, maybe not as long as this one.
It's our expectation that we'll come and talk to you specifically about the budget, so.
So that's good. That I'm pleased that we have found a space for us to, and that we have already covered quite a lot as a basis, and we will then be able to dig in further in some of the areas, and as I say, feed in with the other scrutiny panels, and having those links, because it's very important to show that there is linkage on both sides.
Yeah, and again, extend the invitation if you want to talk to the road safety or any other area of the department, you're very welcome to. Yeah.
Yes, so thank you very much. Minister, please extend to the Assistant Minister as well. Thanks for attending the hearing today. Also, thank you to the officers who attended as well. I'd like to thank the members of public that were here and then also hearing online and watching back in the future as well. So thank you very much. I'd like to close